on kind of grants and other kind of funding streams. And so I think when we've tried to communicate that that's a big part of the strategic planning is looking at kind of, you know, donations, grants, foundations, trusts, whatever kind of other money is out there. I hope that the public understands that that's a real opportunity, and that's not something that, you know, anyway, I just think that's a really great opportunity for us. And as we get into the strategic planning, I hope that the community can kind of better understand that those are actual opportunities for us.
Your turn, Mike.
My turn. Well, I think that what you posed, Catherine, was pretty much the biggest thing that I perceived about the misconception perceived among many people in the community, and confusing it with the prior bond issue as being the same thing. I too am excited about the opportunity that we have before us. Looking forward to seeing us build on the acquisition and getting our programming working. And hopefully the end of COVID will benefit this effort a great deal, I am sure. I appreciate having all the other fellow board members here, and appreciate your skills and talents. And with that, I will pass the mic over to, I see Darren Gooch over there. We have some staff.
Sorry, no, I'm not sure what happened to me here. Yeah, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And Erica, yeah, you actually touched on the piece that I was going to mention. Because one of the biggest misconceptions I saw was that this project was going to translate into some sort of bond measure or financial impact, increase in taxes or something to our community members. And really, you hit the nail on the head when you said there's a lot of grant opportunities out there. I've been grant writing for the district since the early 2000s, and we've had the opportunity to really bring a lot of dollars into this community from agencies, granting agencies outside of our area, brought that money into our community and to some of our local contractors for the projects, and our local businesses to help supply the necessary elements that we needed to bring some of these projects to fruition. So there really is a lot of opportunity out there that exists in the world of grants. And I think approaching this strategic plan in little bite-sized chunks, you know, we're really setting the stage not for the next year, 2 years, we're setting the stage for the next 20 years. And so, you know, when you look at an investment like this, it's not a short-term investment, it's a long-term investment. It's a legacy piece for the folks in our community. So thank you. Hey, Marcus, your turn.
Thank you, Darren. Sorry, I still was muted. My name is Marcus Runkle. I'm the Finance and Operations Manager at the district. I think the biggest one of the big misconceptions, because we've touched on quite a bit, is the safety of the building. I think that there's misconception that it's not a safe building, and that the school moved because it was beyond its life and all this. In reality, based off my recollection of the measures that were passed, it was due to the location for tsunami. It has nothing to do with the building itself, it's the location. And so I think that's a misconception that people have, is that the building is just no longer safe. And I will pass to Justin's gone.
Yeah, Justin stepped out. He's in line right now to get his COVID vaccine. So
I'll pass.
He's going to rejoin the call as soon as he can.
Skylar, your turn.
Oh, you said Skylar. All right. So appreciate all the answers. I think the biggest misconception for me, there's been a lot, I think, is that the building is not up for usage right now, that it's somehow deficient in some way. This is not dissimilar from some perspectives that have already been shared, but a number of our staff, including some on this call and others, have spent a lot of time in the building. And while there is some challenges, there's some concerns, the building actually is looking pretty sharp. And I think there's a lot of use that we can get out of it right away. There's some spaces in there that are really amazing for the district's purposes, for community purposes, and other purposes that we see fit. So I'm really excited to dive into this planning process and have the expert help of our elected officials, the board, and as well as the Klosh Group, and kind of figuring out the best way to use the space. Let's go to Melissa.
Hey, good evening. This is Melissa Ousley. I do the promotions, marketing, and special events. Yeah, I think it's an exciting opportunity. You know, it's one that we've already been using the building for youth programs and among other things. And it's just, I think the misconceptions, you know, have already kind of been stated as far as the ones that I had in mind. But I'm kind of excited about the potential of the building. I think there's a lot there, a lot of ways that we can serve the community and connect and just really make some connections with partner organizations. So I'm super excited about that. I will pass it to Levi.
Levi, if you're there, we can't hear you.
All right, how about now? Can
We
everybody
can
hear
hear
me?
you. Yep.
Okay, perfect. I have a new speaker device. So, all right, I'm Levi Connor, the maintenance manager. And I spent a lot of time over in that space, really getting to know it. And there's a lot of misconceptions out there. And I think everybody kind of touched on them, and very valid points, but it is shaping up. It's looking really nice inside. And yeah, I'll just reiterate what everybody else has said. So back to you, Catherine.
Let's hear from David. David, are you there? Hey, Skylar.
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me. That's good.
Yep. We can probably, if you want, I think we're going to hear from our Klosh Group representatives here in just a minute. I think
Okay.
we got all the staff and board, but Sue has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Sue.
I have my hand up because I'm remembering that it was brought to our attention, you know, and I believe it's a misconception that to repurpose the building was going to cost us over $10 million. And I think that is a misconception that maybe someone else can speak to. But I know that is not actually accurate, but that was stated at a previous meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't know, Catherine, is okay if I speak on that? Sue asked for clarification.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of awkward silence out there. I'm concerned that this is going to be a longer meeting than it needs to be. We got to
You
jump
said
on
1
this,
hour.
people. I know. I know. We got to be on the ball. No, so I think that misconception, Sue, comes from a quote that I actually stated a few years ago. And that was when we were looking at doing the bond for the recreation center that we proposed in 2018. We went through a thorough process of looking at the middle school as a viable option for serving the same purposes. And the reason why we opted away from that is because we felt it was going to be more expensive to purchase the middle school and repurpose it as a recreation center. But the reason why we thought it would be more expensive was because the school district told us at that time that they were going to try to get every dollar that they could out of the property, and that they would list it for the appraised value, which they anticipated to be in between 12 and $15 million. And so we expected that at that time, that when they were ready to list the property, it would be 12 to $15 million to buy it, and then however much it cost to repurpose it. And so that amount would have exceeded the amount that we went out for the public bond for, which was $20 million. So I think at the time that was accurate information, but since then, obviously, the school district decided to lower the asking price for the property, and we were able to acquire it for much less than that. So I guess the fruit will be born in the coming months and years if this was a smart financial move. But I'm really confident that I don't think we could have acquired such a recreation space with the capacity to do the things that we want to do and that can be done there, adjacent to the district properties, for anywhere near the price that we got this building for. So hope that answers your question, Sue, and addresses that misconception. Okay, that's it. Catherine, I think for staff, I don't see Justin back yet. So if he jumps back on, I'll let you know.
Okay. Do you want to lead the next part there, the desired outcomes?
Yeah. Great. So actually, I know Jeff and David Dwyer are on the call, Jeff Caldwell and David Dwyer from Klosh Group. And we've been meeting with them at points during this property acquisition, and as we were looking more at the property. And I just want to introduce them, make sure that the board and the staff know who they are and some of their experiences, and they can speak more on that. I think our outcomes for tonight, this is a public meeting, so it probably, and there's still a ton that's undecided and still kind of floating around up there. The reason why I felt like we could have a short, effective meeting tonight was because this is really, I think, for one, it's an opportunity for us to, the first time that staff and board have come together and kind of celebrate that this transaction was completed, that we have the building, and just kind of, I think it's important to kind of just recognize that this is a really momentous experience for all parties, and something that I think will be really important, a key moment in the district and our community history. And then the next outcome that I'm hoping is that we'll kind of kick off our strategic plan process. And Jeff and I will share a little bit more about how we, I guess, envision that will go over the next few months or period of time. I think we're hoping that the board will select a representative, or maybe a couple of representatives, to work closely with staff and the Klosh Group as we're kind of working on the strategic plan, bringing information back to the board or providing regular updates, but kind of a smaller group within the elected officials body. And then talk a little bit about how the process will gather input from staff and also gather that public input. And then lastly, it's been identified that we'll try to obtain a consultant to kind of help us with this process. And the Klosh Group will represent our interests in that, obtaining the consultant to help us, and making sure that we get the most out of that strategic plan process. But we want to make sure we provide Jeff and David with the right information so that they can issue a request for a proposal on our behalf, and we can talk about the timeline for reviewing those proposals. So having said all that, I think it's appropriate for Jeff to come in and maybe make sure everybody knows him and David and their experiences, and then we can go from there. Jeff, does that sound all right?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Jeff Caldwell with the Klosh Group. I started the Klosh Group in 2016 after working for a number of larger consultant firms, as well as on the general contracting side. I am a 1986 graduate of Seaside High School as well. So growing up in Seaside, having taken part in this process to date, and then moving it forward is a great honor for me to be be honest with you. The Klosh Group, mainly led by David Dwyer, who's on the phone call and has been quite involved to date on this project, is we worked on the Seaside Convention Center job. It was at that time, and I believe it still is a year later, the largest capital improvement project in the history of the city. And we were able to deliver that project under budget, putting dollars that were set aside for contingency back into the capital program, as well as delivering it on time, despite it being a fully occupied space. So I think we're very proud of that. Unfortunately for Russ, he hasn't been able to use the facility since then, but you know, so be it. That's kind of where we're at. I know David was a little quiet over there, which is pretty unusual for him. He usually likes to jump in, but he was probably focused on some other stuff. But David Dwyer, I have had the personal pleasure of knowing him for about 20 years. He's been with the Klosh Group for a little over 3. Very diligent, as you guys have all experienced, very knowledgeable, and will be part of the process moving forward. As far as what I think is, we have a lot of work ahead of us. Obviously, there's still a lot of things that are have questions surrounding them, specifically around next steps, a very focused strategy around how to impart and use that building to the best and highest use for the city and the district. We don't have a lot of answers today, and that's okay. But I do believe I would second the recommendation. One of the things that we've found very successful in the past is to have a key representatives, stakeholders on a team to make sure that we have a collaborative process, and we would meet on a regular basis to have very focused work sessions, and then that group could then take the information and report back out to the larger board and then the public at large. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to create a very unique facility, all in the name of creating a public benefit for future generations. So that's it.
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
David, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, Jeff usually takes care of all the words, so I never get a chance to. No, yeah, like I've said before to this group and the board, we are super grateful to be part of the project. Very excited to be part of it, and I do agree. In our best practice, like Jeff said, is to get the right consultants on the team to help really define and, you know, in this case, really kind of develop the highest and best use for the facility. So I think those kind of next steps and putting together the team, including a couple members of the board, and however Skylar and the board agree on that to happen, I think that's going to prove to be very fruitful going forward. So glad that we're here and we can help in that process. So thanks again.
So I guess one of the things we need to kind of determine is a timeline. Like what's, you know, is it a month, 6 months, a year? Do we have different plans for each of those times? What does a strategic planning process look like generally for something this large?
Skylar, you want one of us to jump in there?
Yeah, I think you're better equipped to answer it, especially the second half of her question.
Yeah. So as far as timeline, I think it really comes down to getting the first step is getting that focus group and being able to brainstorm and think about the different things that we could be doing. But I think some of the early things that you would want to do is get out an RFP, so to speak, to have a consultant firm come on board that has far more national, I would say, experience on specifically around parks and rec districts, excuse me, and how they represent in the community, really at a high level to focus on driving revenue, not just for the district, so to speak, even though and as a special district, but the greater community at large. So long-winded answer to something that could take potentially 6 months to a year to where you get to the very end. But I do think after 3 to 4 months, you would have a very good focus on what that process looks like, that you could then report back to you, the board, and the public on a larger scale.
So the
But
first step for you would be to create the subgroup from the board, and then have a meeting and develop a RFP to find the consulting firm. Does that sound accurate?
That's yep. Those are the first couple of steps. Absolutely.
Okay.
So Kathy, can I ask a quick question, Catherine?
Yeah, go ahead.
Would the or Skylar, maybe this is for you. I mean, I'm assuming the subgroup needs to determine this, but I think the missing link a little bit for me is like a strategic kind of planner for programming specifically. You know, we have a lot of knowledge here in terms of like facilities and how to improve those, but it feels like the programming aspect of what we actually want to do in the building would then kind of move us forward to how we renovate or how we use the building long term. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think maybe what you're referring to or addressing is kind of like there's an immediate program plan that we're, actually, I mean, we started trying to take advantage of opportunities to use the space as early as yesterday with a gym rental for basketball. And that, I think that program plan is going to kind of continue in some form, while this strategic plan is going on. And then, but I guess I kind of feel like the strategic plan can either incorporate some of that or not. But what I feel, I guess what I was envisioning is when the strategic plan is done, it's going to say, these are these are your options, or these are what we think will bring you the most usage or the most revenue, or all those kind of factors. And until that plan is fully developed and even adopted by the board, and we figure out, how it's going to happen, then we can continue, using the facility with our community's best interests at heart. Is that sort of what you're referring to, or am I off, Erica?
I guess I'm just clarifying that the person, like, through this RFP process that we would need to be looking for would have more of the programming planning expertise, because I think that's what we're lacking as a group, is somebody who can guide us. Because really that plan should then guide how we actually use the facility.
Well,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Jeff mentioned that looking for somebody nationally that has Parks and Rec experience is part of submitting that RFP, and part of the reason we have the Klosh group in the first place is to help us find that bigger picture that fits our specific needs.
Clarifying that's what the ultimate goal, I guess.
Yes.
What is it RSP?
Request for proposal. So you have to send out for basically people to come back with a bid saying how much they want to charge you and what they're going to do for you.
Yeah, and I think, Erica, to answer your question, and Jeff and David and I have talked a little bit about this, but I think the programming part is to me, at least, it's just one of the qualifications that we'll be looking for in a consultant. I think there's other aspects that we really want. I think we would really probably like somebody that's available, or that's informed and educated or experienced on, how to do potential real estate transactions, because we know that there's a part of the property that other agencies or interests might have, some desire to have part of it. I think there is a need for this consultant to also have some building or construction experience so that they can speak to the condition of the building and understand, the priorities that we might set forth based on the information that we have or information that will come available. So I think they kind of need to have, I guess, be well-rounded or dynamic in the sense that they can speak to the programming part of it, be familiar with recreation districts or park and recreation districts, but then also have some experience in some of those other areas that makes this property unique. Sue, you raising your hand?
Yes.
Sue, you can just
Celeste-
speak up. You don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to.
Well, I want to be Robert's rules, So since you're the secretary of SDAO, do you have?
No, I'm not. I'm the secretary of the ORPA, board, which is different.
Okay. Because I was going to ask, since we just went to that conference, was there a resource at that conference that might be able to help us?
There may be. I didn't see all of the vendors. I know there are resources in the state, people that do this, and I've had a couple folks reach out already actually and say, hey, what's your plan? I'd like to be involved. But I think David and Jeff's network, the Klosh Group's network their net is a lot wider cast, and they can help us kind of sort through, having gone through some of the experiences that their firm has gone through. I think they can help us kind of separate the wheat from the tares a little bit in the forming of the RFP, but also in selecting the right person and then getting the most out of our, I guess, our money or our experience that we have with them.
So I'd like to just propose that, and maybe this is something that advisory group considers, but I'd like to propose that we stay open, that we might not find all of these characteristics in a single vendor, and that we might want to think about the potential of bringing in consultants with specialized knowledge in several of these areas. Specifically, I'm thinking that part of this mix, I mean, we have sort of a unique opportunity here with such a large piece of property, right? And we don't know if the district is going to use all of it itself or need to partition it off. And I think part of the question mark involves resource development. So that is like somebody with experience in fundraising for park and rec districts. And by fundraising, I don't mean like fundraisers. I mean like actually doing resource development and grant proposals and major sponsorships, and forming the kind of partnerships that might help us envision, sort of have a bigger view of what we might do with the property.
Yeah, I agree, Skylar, just from experience, because I recruit and hire consultants all day long. I would just be careful about like the scope of work. I agree with Celeste that I don't think you maybe would want to include all of those things in one scope of work, because I think that would be kind of a needle in a haystack.
That sounds great. And I think that's why we need this meeting and need some representation from all of the parties here, the board, staff, and then obviously Klosh Group as we go forward. I've said this before and I'm going to say it, I think, lots of times, but this is for most of us as staff, this is a new experience, and we want to do our best, but I think we're going to rely on the other experts in the room for that help.
I would just like to say, with regard, I think an RFP is probably a good idea. We've had consultants in the past with OPSIS who have done some visioning for different uses of the facility, mostly built around fairly expensive renovations. But the building is pretty much ready to go right now. And we do have space in which we can operate programs right now. And I really think part of this needs to be a big input from staff. The staff have been doing quite a bit of visioning, I expect, about what they'd like to do and how they'd see parts of this building utilized. So I think staff needs to share their vision completely with the board and also with the planners. I can understand we have a lot of physical improvements, remediation to do with roofing. I have questions about what can we do, the real estate information, the legal information, And the idea of maybe even going to the planning commission and formally partitioning that property is probably a realistic possibility. I'm interested in seeing whether or not, different things the community has wished for in the past, like performing arts center. I look at that music room with its tiered platforms for chorus and for orchestra and band. That could be an asset that would match up with performing arts involvement with Park and Rec also. It's occurred to me also that I've had advice that we might be able to do in the long run. Maybe this is 20 years from now, if we live so long, that we could have a vertical escape platform combined with a new gymnasium, and that possible FEMA funding might come into play to support that, for example. I have kind of given up on my idea that the existing gym might support an indoor track. I think the roof design is not high enough to support that. But we could look down the road, many years, we can get a lot of use out of the two gyms we have now. And have basketball and all kinds of indoor sports in those gyms without having to expand it. The idea occurred to me that possibly with structural review, that the older portion where we need to replace a huge roof, for instance, we might why not just put in trusses and re-roof it and add a second story? Maybe those upstairs units could be supported with an elevator that might support some improvement around the gym area. But there's no telling what we might be able to do if we were able to just simply truss in a second floor, and like the way a lot of the motels and hotels are built around here, and do your fire rated flooring and different things like that. There could be a partner involved with us that could manage that. And also, I'm thinking that maybe the old 1948 classrooms to the west, maybe what would happen if they were demolished. But if you look at what would happen if we demolished the whole facility and wanted to rebuild it, we would spend in excess of 20 million. It would cost us 20 million just to put back 50,000 square feet, if we tore down anything.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in staff's proposal. I'm interested in all the help we can get. It might be a good idea to talk with OPSIS. They might be able to help us do some visioning by tweaking, the digital files they have for the facility. Go ahead, Sue.
What is OPSIS?
They're the company that did the proposal the last time we went out for a bond. They were the one that created the plan.
So if it's okay, if I could just jump in real quick, this is Jeff Caldwell.
Go ahead.
Yep. So I think those are all actually extremely good points about how you potentially use the building and where that visioning might come from. So one of the ideas and thoughts that we would have as part of the RFP is we would welcome the ultimately the consultant that's helping with the program, along with some of the other aspects of the building and its use, to have an architectural partner to help through that visioning process of what it might look like, what that square footage would be required to support those programs that the district might want to move forward now and into the future. So we would want a cohesive team that's working together with the same visioning and the same path forward.
Yeah. Hey, Skylar and Catherine, for tonight specifically, like what is kind of our ultimate goal, or what are we trying to accomplish tonight specifically?
We are trying to decide on basically the team of board and the team of staff that will be working with the Klosh Group to start the RFP process.
And would we be able to outline sort of the anticipated time commitment to do that? Because I think that's an important factor for those that are going to be involved.
And I have another question about the warming center that's already in the paper.
We're gonna talk about the warming center after we finish this part too.
Okay.
So
Jeff-
Jeff,
Yeah,
Can
could we
you-
hear from you? Sorry, Catherine.
no, that's okay. Sorry. Zoom's hard. Jeff, could you maybe give us, and Skylar and or Skylar, maybe give us kind of a rough time commitment that to get to start the RFP process?
Well, well, I think everybody needs to quit their day jobs and just focus on this, and then it'll go a lot faster. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think back to your original question around timeline, that if people don't have the time to be able to dedicate to this, the timeline could be moved out a little bit. But I would expect that we could have meetings every other week for a couple of hours and get through quite a bit and really drive some stuff. Again, we could take it through that first couple of meetings, we would take a shot at developing that timeline that we could share with the bigger group. But I would think that a couple hours every other week, we could get a lot of work done.
And so Jeff, I think that jives with what I would expect. And my experience with like doing strategic planning like this, I mean, I think it's important for both staff and board to recognize that at least my impression wouldn't be that this group makes all the decisions. Certainly that wouldn't be the case. The idea of this group is more like a steering committee, right? To put processes in place to help move the decisions forward, but that other folks will be involved in the decision process. Is that right, Skylar and Jeff? Do you think, would that?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, from my perspective, absolutely. That would be the best way to do that, is to come to this group and get feedback, you know, that could be shared here and bought into, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the purpose of maybe, you know, that smaller group is to just be able to not occupy so much of the time for the entire board and staff, and just move a little swifter. I think it's really important. You know, I know we don't want to rush the process or the timeline, but it's important for district staff from a fiduciary perspective, as we're looking at preparing the budget over the next few months, that we have a better idea for what the next fiscal year will hold. And so the sooner I think we have, you know, an idea of what the master plan will hold and some of the goals that come out of this process, then I think the more prepared and better predictions we can put into that budget process.
And Skylar, I think I mentioned last week at our board meeting that in some ways I almost see like the short-term kind of proposals coming in as separate to maybe that long-term strategy. And so I'm wondering if instead of like diving into all those short-term proposals maybe tonight, you know, maybe that group needs to discuss that, you know, more urgently while also planning for the RFP. So because it just seems like that needs to happen probably soon. And I don't know if we were really planning on diving into all those proposals tonight.
Yeah, and I agree. And I'll let the board decide, but I don't know if it's appropriate for us to dive into all those proposals right now, at least in this meeting, because I think some of those proposals probably are hoping that we can discuss them either confidentially, or we don't have enough information to answer some of the questions that I feel like will come up. Right now, I can tell you the staff's perspective is that I feel like it's my position to entertain those proposals or receive those proposals and then pass them on to the board. But staff isn't making any, you know, significant facility changes based on the board's direction that they provided previously. So while we will, you know, while we're trying to, you know, make the gyms available and use the other spaces in the building, we're not tearing down walls. We're not doing anything significant. We're just trying to kind of repair the building from a state of being not as well maintained as it could have been over the last few years, and clean and organize and take some action to make sure that it's hospitable for our programs and for the rentals that we're using. But yeah, Erica, I think that'd be great to have that kind of smaller group to sort of say, well, what do you think about this? Or this group approached us. And then if it is serious, you know, or worth considering further, then we can bring it to the board or invite that person to that agency or that party to come to a board meeting and share more information.
Sorry, sorry, Sue, I just before I forget, one more, another way to potentially even look at it is, last time I was talking about maybe splitting it up into subcommittees based on kind of the strategic pillars that we had outlined too. So that's also another way that we could look at this is, not only just including staff and the board, but maybe including community members who have specific expertise in those areas. I don't know if, anyway, it's just another suggestion.
I think that's one approach. Maybe, I don't know, Jeff, David, I guess I'm already talking. So the board had an idea, and I don't know if it was Erica or Celeste, but kind of came up with sort of a threefold reason to pursue the building during the acquisition phase, or phase one, maybe, I think even. And the reasons were kind of narrowed down or refined to be: one, to expand childcare programs or preschool and childcare programs. The second reason was to provide more indoor recreation space or dry indoor recreation space in our community. And the third was to, I think, contribute, maybe was how it was worded, but contribute to a vibrant sports tourism economy. And those reasons, I think, really resonated with a lot of our residents as they heard the messaging of trying to acquire the building. So we could continue to utilize those or kind of form those community board staff subgroups or work groups. And I don't know exactly how it fits into this plan right now, but I think that's good to kind of keep alive.
I think tonight. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, this is Jeff again. Sorry, but yeah, as a member of the community and a resident, I think establishing criteria that we can all follow, and if it doesn't fit into those criteria, then maybe you don't focus on those things as much is an excellent idea. And expanding programs, more indoor recreation, and then contributing to the economy. It's hard for me to believe anyone in this community can't get behind those. Those are all great to focus on. So thanks, Catherine.
No problem. So I think for tonight, before we start outlining committees with community members, I think we need to just pick a group from the board to work with a group from the staff and the Klosh group to just kind of start the ball rolling. So we would need just 2 members because we can't have 3, otherwise we have a board meeting. So do we have 2 volunteers that would like to be involved in this, that have the time available?
I'm interested in volunteering.
Perfect. Anyone else?
I saw Mike raise his hand there. Mike, I don't know if you were you raising your hand? Mike? You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I would be very interested in that, but we've got some newer board members here, and
well, it actually goes along, Mike, because Mike and Celeste were originally working on that together, so it might make sense if they just continued.
And that was actually going to be my dream team suggestion, so I'm glad they volunteered before I had to pick them. So Skylar, can you maybe come up with who you think would be the best from the staff?
Yeah, that's going to be hard to choose, but I will work on that and consult with the staff and see who's interested, and maybe talk to Jeff and David about the best way forward. But this is awesome. I'm really glad. I think any of the board would have been terrific, but happy to have the experiences of Mike and Celeste as we work on this.
Okay, so anything else we want to touch on that part, or do we want to move on to our discussion about the warming center? Anything else, Jeff or David, that you would like to hear from us tonight?
Not in reference to this. I look forward to working with everybody and on the focus group with Celeste and Michael. So thank you.
Thank you so
Very
much
well.
for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so warming center update. Mike had submitted some questions to Skylar. I had submitted some questions to Skylar. Did we hear back yet on those questions, Skylar?
We heard back from one of the parties from Clatsop Community Action, their perspective on your questions. I haven't had a chance to connect with Helping Hand staff yet, though.
Okay. So the questions kind of the biggest questions that I had and Mike had raised, and we can kind of discuss a little bit, is I had asked how it was going to be staffed specifically. I had asked if the planned times would interfere at all with the operation of the emergency childcare. Mike had asked about impacting our insurance. He had also asked if we had received permission from the city of Seaside and the county public health department to proceed with offering an emergency shelter. One of the questions Sue had raised previously that Mike asked again was, how will pets be handled? Another of the questions was, if the SRC grounds are impacted with extra litter, how will refuse be handled safely? Resources for nutrition, screening of clients for registered offenders or criminal behaviors, allowing bathing in the locker rooms, and one of my main questions, because they had proposed to start this on the 12th, and I don't know if the CCA or Helping Hands has the necessary cots and supplies to even start this project in that timeline, because I know that there are supply chain issues. And then, I just wanted to make sure that everybody involved in this understands that this is a temporary use, as we haven't finished our master plan for the property and that space may become occupied. So those are the questions that Mike and I and Sue had posed that I feel like we need answers to before we can sign on the dotted line and say, yes, you can go forward with this plan. I personally, I understand the need, particularly this week as the temperatures are going to plummet. I just don't know that we can get this off the ground in 3 days.
Go ahead, Sue.
One thing, I had the opportunity to follow up with a veterinarian, gosh, he's Dr. Bob, and anyway, in Cannon Beach, Dr. Bob Kroll, and he said, don't forget, if you're putting animals in with people, you're going to have allergies. He said that gets forgotten, that not everyone can be around another person's dog. And I thought that was important to be aware of, but they are not able, as far as DART goes, they are not, which is the disaster animal response team, they are not able to assist in any way. They said to go through finding information through CCA, which we've already been in contact with.
The other thing too would be fleas or ticks.
Mike,
So, yeah, go ahead, Celeste.
and Mike, I think you had something also.
That's okay. I think a lot of these things are naturally, they're issues that would be resolved, and I'm sure that Clatsop Community Action would want to have all their ducks in a row also. We want to make sure that we're not exposed to any unusual liability. We are advised that our insurance will be fairly expensive to maintain the building as it is right now until we do some remedial work and bring it up to snuff. I know it was mentioned that there might be a contingency siting for this at the Bob Chisholm Community Center. But I think the middle school lends itself well to it. as long as we, Skylar had pointed out to me when I toured it with him a few days ago that they would put a temporary barricade up on the one hallway that leads back to the gym on the northeast corner. And they had a hallway that they could control access to. But I would like to see this be a super duper opportunity for the homeless to get warm. I was wondering whether or not they would have an opportunity for health care, to perhaps get COVID vaccinations or get some health screening. I would assume they would have possibility. I noticed the letterhead was from, on a reentry group kind of basis, that maybe this, would help possibly improvements in the lifestyle. And I see a good separation from our young persons programs in the far remote corner of the building. No, but I'm concerned that maybe that this would move to the community center because from my experience in the storm in 2007, when we did emergency services there for 6 days, almost 7 days, 5 days without power, that we had hundreds and hundreds of people in the community center, and it was too crowded, and almost everybody, all the staff got bad cases of the flu after that because there were so many volunteers and people coming there. And I'm wondering if really it might make the community center vulnerable if we were to make that into a temporary shelter.
Mike, I think Skylar spoke to the city about that opportunity and they were not excited about it.
I wouldn't
Hey, Catherine, can I say something?
Yeah.
All right, Levi, maintenance manager for SEPRD. One thing that's going to trump everything is occupancy. So every commercial building has occupancy granted, and that's through life safety measures. So that's collaboration between the building department and fire. So when you start having people living and sleeping in a building, especially a commercial building, that is already zoned or occupancy granted for, say, a school, that's going to change the entire thing. So something to keep in mind moving forward with this is the change of occupancy, because a lot of that is, say there was a fire on that one side where you have the warming center, that entire sprinkler system is going to go off. So the entire building will get flooded with water to put that small fire out. So something to keep in mind is occupancy will change and will have to be granted as an exception through the city.
Yes. Thanks, Levi.
So Catherine, if I could, so I've been reflecting on this a lot and thinking about it. I know that everybody here, I think this is the type of humanity that we need. Like, we need to see more of this in the world where we're caring for people. And, I know that in my day job, I see the effects of homelessness on families and particularly how harshly that lands on children. So, believe me, my heart is in a place to worry about people who are spending their time homeless. But my job here as a board of directors member is to be a shepherd of this organization and its mission. And, we're on the precipice of this new project. And so it had me considering how this particular venture might fit in with the mission of the organization. And just to remind us and center us on what the mission of Sunset Empire is, it is Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District invites and inspires our entire community to engage in play or positive life activities for you, and that we lead our community towards a healthy, active lifestyle and foster a sense of community through inclusive, sustainable, educational, and recreation programs. And when I read that, this is not mission aligned. And for Sunset Empire to take on a substantial amount of risk. I mean, we just heard Levi, which I hadn't even thought about, like flooding or other mechanical issues with the building itself. But I also know that I've had several conversations with business owners in the community that are very worried about drawing more people to the center of our town. It's one of the big reasons to purchase the building is because it's a very visible piece. And here our first activity is going to take on a program or project that is non-missional. And I'm afraid about sort of the precedent that we're setting in the community and the reverberation we might get from the very people that we need to get behind the Broadway project. So I'm worried about that. I don't think the project itself is a match for our mission. I would propose, however, that there might be a way for us to do it, but I don't think we can figure it out in 3 days. And I think this pressure of trying to come up with a solution in this short amount of time is problematic. I propose that we could all, as individuals, get behind supporting the homeless problem in our community, and that maybe down the road, as we plan, we might have a planful way to support what is going on with the homeless population. But I feel very worried about taking on this project at this really important moment when we've got a huge hill ahead in planning for Broadway Middle School. I think Chisholm is really interesting. Like that city-owned project, right, that we just manage. We're the administrator for the Bob Chisholm Center. Like, I would be interested why that is not a solution. Because that's city-owned project, and city has a large investment in managing this problem. So that's my 2 cents.
I want to add my 2 cents to Celeste. I was really quite concerned, and I contacted Skylar, that in our paper, it talks about how the phrasing of the tense was, we'll consider, we will be thinking about doing a warming center, and it became, we will do a warming center, and then we're going to vote on it tonight. And that's what's in the paper. For all our people who are wondering or frustrated or alarmed at us acquiring Broadway Middle School, now it looks like we're not doing what was written in the paper. And so I don't know how that showed up like that, but it concerned me that now we're not in a position to vote for, I mean, we all have hearts of gold. We want to help the homeless in whatever way we can. But I think to have purchased this school and turn around and then say, oh no, we're not going to do a warming center, because Levi brings up very valid points. We also each addressed a valid point, but it looks like we're turning our back on the homeless, and that's not correct. But it's been written in the paper, and unfortunately, I don't know, maybe people don't read the paper, but I do. And it was quite alarming to me that we're voting on it tonight, which isn't truthful at all. And it concerns me that it gives us a black eye that isn't really deserved. But I think we need to address something where whatever we're going to choose to do is, we are concerned about the homeless. Maybe we can turn this over to the Bob Chisholm Community Center and find a win-win. But I feel like right now, the way it's written in the paper and we're going to vote on it tonight, that's just a misconception, and the public won't understand that.
I think the communications aspect is really important, Sue. And I think we need to do some proactive communications, whatever we decide to do here, because, when it's easy to say, I mean, this just came on our radar, as I'm understanding it, last week, right? Like, there's a whole coalition of people in our community who have been working on this program, working on homelessness issues for decades, right? Like, how did this get turned over to be our black eye or our, what I mean? Like, I think we can be supportive partners, but this is not SPRD's main mission. We should be playing a support role, not a main role. And in my opinion, I think it is mission creep. And I think it potentially, again, has some risks of alienating folks. And frankly, one of the people that I had said, I would have never supported this project if I knew this was what your plans were. The impression was that this was a bait and switch. And so I think we need to be aware of sort of, if this is the first thing within 30 days or whatever it's been since we closed on the building, and this is the first programmatic placement in the building from public, at least from the public perception, I think we have some communications work to do.
So I agree, I hear what you guys are saying, and I'm on the fence all around. I also just want to point out that I saw a different reaction from the community, because the comments on the article on Facebook were actually immensely positive. They were impressed that this was something that was going to be to benefit the community. I'm struggling with the timeline that they want, and I'm struggling with this concept. So
We couldn't really vote on it tonight. It's not our regular public meeting. It's a workshop. It's a great discussion though. And it's not a perfect fit to our mission, but there and again, if we leased a portion of the building for this specific use, it would be there. It would be classic community action who would be operating it. But Jeff has pointed out, and I fully understand that if we change the use of the building, it puts us into a different type of planning, and the fire safety issue and the egress kind of issue. Maybe it can be managed, but
mean-
I haven't gotten any negative feedback about it. It's not a perfect fit for our mission, but it's a perfect fit for classic community action to be able to have this program for 6 weeks or so. But I understand the controversy. I do.
I mean, I don't know, I don't know a ton about kind of warming centers or these kind of facilities, but I would suspect that not a lot of them share space with the community in terms of children and other activities that are happening. I don't know if that's really common practice to see those two in one location. And for me, that those kind of the risk liability stuff is, I guess, where my head goes, and it just worries me, particularly when I know, we haven't formally, and we've been trying, the Broadway project kind of took precedent, but we have been trying to kind of standardize a lot of those policies, like our code of ethics and how we will respond in certain situations. And I don't know if we're fully capable of taking on a situation that could happen, so.
It's pretty sudden. But I had Friday night, anecdotally, I'd mentioned a homeless person came to my front door, about 8 o'clock at night and wanted to know about the community gardens, how they could get a plot. And we may have some homeless gardeners over at the Railroad Community Gardens. I'm not completely sure. I'd rather not have homeless people coming to my door without a mask in the middle of the night, but I wanted to be respectful. And I referred them to the park district because right now it's the foundation is managing that, but we all need to do what we can, but we need a place for people to go like that they can get answers to their questions and get shelter. This was a female homeless person.
One of the things, Astoria has a warming center at the Methodist Church. The church is closed to services right now. So there is, and it's a separate floor. There is, and I don't know that much about it, but I am aware that it is open. It's just, they don't have an issue with exposure to children or exposure to any of their members who go into church because the church part is closed. So Skylar, can we look at using that open space at the Bob Chisholm Community Center?
Or maybe ask that they reach out to some of the many churches in our community.
Yeah, I think that's fine. That's an option. I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure if it's our place to tell them where to go, but I think we can suggest those things, and I have a good relationship with those two agencies, and would be happy to further that offer along to them.
Is there anything we can do about, the article that's in the paper?
Well, I mean, I don't know what we can do. I know RJ's probably listening, and I think the position, I guess I feel like the position has been made pretty clear tonight from the district board. where they stand in that. I think, I guess if I had a different interpretation of the article when I read it, but I can see how maybe folks felt like it was a done deal, or that it was our doing this program, that it was the SEPRD warming shelter, when in reality, I think it was more of an agreement that these other partner agencies wanted to work out, where we could use, or they could use the SRC, the recreation center, for this purpose for the next few weeks, and then find a more permanent solution at a later point. But I can also understand the concerns. So again, we're not allowed to vote on it. I think what I asked Catherine to bring it up tonight, this is the first chance we've had to meet together in a couple of weeks before I put it to you, and I put it to you just as soon as I possibly could. If the board wants to take action, then I think it needs to occur in an official meeting with the opportunity for public comment. If the board doesn't want to take action, then I don't think we need to do anything more. I'm happy to communicate with those partners that this isn't the best fit for the district at this time, but we wish them the best of luck, and here's some options, or here's some places that they could consider.
Skylar, actually, you kind of bring up a good point. So, you know, like Celeste, maybe hearing from you, like I get that this isn't mission critical, but what if we also rent the space to other non-mission critical organizations in the future? You know, I mean, wouldn't it be kind of similar, actually?
Yeah, I think it might be. And if it were in a grander scheme or plan, it would make sense. Like if that is part of the master plan, is to rent portions of the property to non, but currently people are under the impression that the district purchased this property for the district's use. I mean, we just have not, because we intentionally held off on planning. Maybe there's a way to communicate that, but again, can we do that in the next 3 days? That's a pretty heavy lift, I think.
Well, and I'm also wondering what happens when, I mean, I'm afraid of driving to Portland tonight to get a car because of the temperatures and all that. And tomorrow, I mean, what are we doing? I think of those people that I went face to face with in the Safeway parking lot when, for the, to offer a warm meal. And, you know, they can't sleep in Safeway's parking lot in the weather. So, I mean, I don't know what to do, but I'm actually afraid for them.
So I agree, Sue, and I think this is really tough, because I think, and I know this from running a nonprofit for the last 20 some years. You know, people come to you, and you know, as a group, we are here because we want to serve our communities and we want to take care of things. But if we allow ourselves to get too overstretched or put the organization at risk, we can't do our main mission anymore. And
True.
that is our job, is to protect the ability of this entity to serve its main mission. I would just point out that, again, and I don't have information, like, I don't know, how is it that this group that has been that works on this, this is the question I would want to know from them. Like, why is this the only option on the table? I mean, there are empty commercial spaces all over Seaside.
Yeah, I can,
So
I can't speak for them, but I can just say where our involvement came. Celeste was after Viviana Matthews, I think she's the executive director is her title, of Clatsop Community Action, presented at Seaside City Council on, January, I want to say it was January 25th. There was a discussion following her presentation about the need for a warming shelter in Seaside. This was by the counselors and by Viviana. And I think there was a hope from the council that they would be able to find a venue for this in Seaside. A couple of days later, I think on Wednesday of that week, I was contacted by Alan Evans, who used to be the board president of the district and now is, or he's still the CEO, I think, of Helping Hands. And he said, hey, Viviana and I were talking, and we really want this shelter to maybe come to Seaside. And we were thinking, you know, what do you think about the middle school? And I think, you know, kind of intrigued by the idea, just knowing that this is an important service that we could maybe help provide. So we had a quick conversation. We had a Zoom meeting that same day that fit with all of our schedules. The next day, at the suggestion of them, they came to look at the building, and I suggested a couple of potential spaces that might work. They brought the mayor of Seaside, Jay Barber, to that meeting. And then that night, actually, I think the city council had some goal sessions or goal setting workshop. And I think it was shared, I'm assuming by the mayor at that meeting, that this was something that was in the works. And that's kind of how it developed quickly. I don't know if Viviana and the other folks have considered other venues. Like you, Celeste, I've wondered why they didn't consider the Bob Chisholm or maybe even the convention center.
Convention center. The chamber is closed after hours. Why not use the chamber?
Yeah.
I mean, like, so in other words, I would be careful, Sue, that we're not the only people that can solve this problem. As a matter of fact, I would pose, we're not the best people to solve this problem. We already have another mission that we're supposed to be paying attention to. Right?
I was just stunned to see it in the paper.
Yeah.
And the tense was might to will, and we'll vote on it tonight. That's incorrect information. But you've got a public out there going, what's going on? I didn't write the art. I mean, I'm sorry, RJ. I mean, I don't know where the information came from. I didn't write it, but I was alarmed by it. And, you know, the high school is being used as a vaccination center. Why can't it also be used as a warming center?
Right.
The old high school.
Yeah.
So Skylar, it sounds like our general consensus amongst the members is that we would like to help, but we don't feel like it's in our mission, and maybe they could find a different venue. I don't think we necessarily need to vote on this.
Yeah, you actually, I would strongly suggest that you don't vote since this is a workshop.
Well,
But
no, I mean, in general, I don't think
like
we,
have another meeting and vote. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like there's enough weight, I guess, to do that. And
Yeah, but I don't know if I guess I mean, if we can't really decide, it feels like we're deciding. And I don't know if everybody has fully taken the time to like think about what we just talked about. You know, I haven't heard a lot from Mike in terms of really one way or the other. I mean, can we even really make a decision? I don't know.
Well, go ahead, Mike.
And to be honest, I haven't heard anything from the staff at all. So I don't know. It feels like we're kind of making a decision when we're not supposed to make a decision.
Well, I think this is a workshop, but we can't make a formal decision. I think it's been a good discussion. There does seem to be consensus that that maybe this isn't the most agreeable situation that we could give ourselves into. There are still some unanswered questions. And I do feel there are questions that need to be answered in order to protect the district, no matter who we lease the building to or any portion of the building. So
really good point. I think you're exactly right, Mike. I think these are questions that moving forward, we would have to be able to ask any group.
Yeah, and it's a, you know, the interesting thing is about the animals is there is a dog park in front of that corner of the school, and no reason the dogs couldn't be in there all night. But you know,
I mentioned that to the DART meeting.
A couple of dog houses in there, you know, but you know, we still haven't had our questions answered by the community action folks, and there is a use thing there we have to be careful with when we change the use of the building, and that could make us bring in a whole bunch of code improvements right away if we, depending on what we had to do. We have air quality things we need to look at, and the fire safety, the egress, and the emergency management. You know, we haven't got any posters up inside the door that are telling people where to go in a tsunami. You know, but emergency lighting has to be working too. So
Yeah, the posters is a great point. I mean, I don't even know if,
it's a good discussion. You know, we haven't really talked about it amongst ourselves independently. So
Just want to state that there is a tsunami evacuation poster in the building near the front entrance. So some
yeah,
of those things
but
had to carry over for occupancy for us to take over. So some of those things are already in place.
if you had a special entrance like that northwest corner for this special function, you would have to have your signages and advisements at that entrance, as well as egress routes. I understand there's things at the main entrance, but
So some things too with occupancy and life safety measures in a building is determining where your main entrance is, main meaning singular, and then everything else is going to be emergency egress. So in that building, as occupancy transferred over to us, the most southern entrance, which is actually the current address entrance on Broadway, that is the main entrance. Everything else is considered emergency egress. So you would only need to have that, all the signage near that entrance as people come in.
yeah. Well, it could be depending on how we use the building or lease it out to anybody else for some other project. It could be that northwest entrance would be their entrance.
And that's going to have to go through city council and that could take.
It would go through the planning commission. Yeah.
Right, which then would have to go through city council approval and all that. And so that you're talking months, many months.
Well,
And during COVID,
we need
it's
COVID
up in the air.
signage too.
Well, I think this was a good discussion. Again, our questions weren't necessarily answered. I think Erica's points are valid, though, that, maybe further discussion for those that haven't had a chance to really ponder the idea. I think for tonight, though, we can table everything, and unless anybody else has anything they'd like to say, I think we can adjourn the meeting.
Catherine, is it okay if you want, I can share the answers that I have so far. There's answers to a couple of your questions at least.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be satisfactory for the other ones though. Viviana replied, she responded to a few of the questions. She said the warming center would operate outside of the hours of emergency childcare. So it would be open from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. She said about the insurance, I think she's implying that the insurance cost would have to be carried by the district, but any extra cost from the insurance, CCA might be able to pay for that. They have some funds designated for this purpose, and that's where the funding, I think the desire to have this is that they had this money that was for this specific purpose and not going to be able to be used for something else. So they could provide the financial backing to make this happen. Their resources for nutrition, again, she stated that they have the funding to pay for the meals, and they had kind of a rough meal plan in place, utilizing just a cold meal for dinner, and then like a grab and go breakfast as folks exited. I guess that's similar to what I think the Astoria Warming Center is doing right now with COVID. And she referred to the cots and supplies question that you had. She said they already purchased the cots and sleeping bags, which are in storage right now. And then she said, in response to your last question about the temporary use, CCA is working on locating a permanent solution for future winters. So
okay,
that's what she shared.
Thanks, Skylar.
So what goes in the paper?
That's up to RJ, but at this point, I think we are still considering the options, and hopefully the CCA will can answer our questions and then maybe consider alternate locations that fall within their mission more.
I mean, Skylar, is there any way to put people in the Bob Chisholm Community Center tomorrow night?
or what about the Mary Blake Playhouse? Isn't that empty?
It is empty. I think given the COVID guidance, I mean, we need to keep at least a 6 feet circle around each each person, and the Mary Blake is pretty small. I would say it's probably not effective.
Yeah.
As far as the Bob Chisholm, I mean, that's a city building. I think the city, I feel uncomfortable about presenting this in a public meeting, but I think to Celeste's point, I think the city, that's a project that the city would need to initiate. We would happily support that project as managers of the building. But if the city doesn't want that use of the Bob Chisholm Community Center, then you know, it's not appropriate for us to make it happen. I have shared that as a potential solution with city staff. And so I think they have the option of saying, yeah, that sounds great, Skylar, let's make it happen. And if they don't say anything, then I'll take it as a response that it's not the best fit for that property according to their desires.
And I think we've already made, I mean, I think that there's gym rentals past 6 p.m. for kids. And there's also PBL, which would be happening as well after that time, at least on weekends. And I just think that would be really, really, really not a great idea to be having that, all of those groups in the building, and especially because it's going to be in the same area.
Yep,
Yeah.
I think that's an important consideration too.
Any
I
further?
noticed, I'm sorry, I thought I saw Justin Smith had joined the meeting a minute ago, but he's gone again.
Yeah, he jumped on, but I guess he's probably getting some dinner or something. All my staff are disappointed that this went over the 1 hour time limit that I gave it. They should know better.
Okay. I move we adjourn the meeting.
All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, everyone.
Erica,